Greetings, everyone. My name is Vinolia, and I'm the marketing coordinator for ASCA, which is African Institute for Supply Chain. Before we start, I'm going to request for everyone to mute their mics to avoid a background noise. And you'll only be able to unmute your mic only if given the opportunity to speak. Today we have our guest speaker who is Prof. Ravinder Rena. Dr. Ravinder Rena is a professor at Monarch Business School at Monarch University. He has lectured at College of Arts and he has lectured at College of Arts and Social Sciences at Osmania University for more than 5 years, which is in Hyderabad area in India.
Right.
He then became head department of economics and banking finance at Asmara Commercial College for more than 7 years. He has then became the professor of economics at Eritrea Institute of Technology for over 3 years, and then became a coordinator research and joint African Masters Program, HP Graduate School of Business at Polytechnic of Namibia in Windhoek for over 3 years. He once again worked as a professor at University of the Western Cape in Cape Town, South Africa for over 2 years. He is now the professor of economics at Monash Business School, Monash University from 2015 until present. His specialties are in teaching, research, curriculum development and planning, research supervision for masters and PhDs, coordination, logistics, and administration. Let's please welcome Prof. Ravinder Rena. Thank you. Prof. Ravinder Rena, you may now proceed.
Vinolia, would you ask Prof to unmute himself, please?
Prof. Ravinder, you are
can
on
you
mute.
able to hear me and see my PowerPoint?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed a proud privilege for me to be part of this particular international webinar research series organized by Africa Institute of Supply Chain Research and Management. And I must thank the president of the organization, Professor Ambe Marcus, and the moderator of this particular event is Vainella, and the other participants from different corners of Africa, and particularly from South Africa. Thank you, one and all. And it's absolutely, I'm delighted to be part of this particular event. Last year, I was presenting and I was speaking on the research design sometime in August, September. And today I'm going to talk about the advanced search strategies to find the right resources for the research. Before we go to the topic, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to touch upon certain salient.
Prof, apology for interjecting you. If you can just put your slide on a presentation mode. There are two ways. You go to slideshow and then you click start, or you look at the bottom. Just look at your screen.
Prof, you can't able to see my slideshow?
We can see it. You need to put it in presentation mode.
Where must I? Okay, yeah, I understand what you mean. Okay, let me, is it fine now?
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Well, Yes, I was trying to touch upon some of the important aspect of the research here, and then I move on to the sources of the research, conducted, and what are the sources that are available online, and how to filter those sources, and so on. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to mention about the research in general. Research is not something; it's not a child play. It is something we need to take care of it, and we need to be very serious about it. For example, why do we do the research? And the people, they may think and they have difference of opinions to do the research. They may say that, Prof, we want to get our MBA degree or a master's degree in economics or supply chain management or marketing or probably finance and so on. And somebody wants to say that we want to get our PhD degree. And that's why we want to do the research. But the research is more than that, ladies and gentlemen. For example, a scholar is known in the world and a leader is known in his territory, in his geographical jurisdiction. So meaning that if we talk about South African President Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, he is known only within South Africa. And if you go and ask, let's say in Nigeria, or if you ask in Somalia or in Kenya, or probably Mali or Burkina Faso, who is the president of South Africa, they may not know. And we know the President Angela Merkel from Germany, and if you ask the same question in South Africa, everywhere, everybody may not know them. And if I ask the same question, who is the Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi, and if I ask the same question in Ivory Coast, for example, or Ghana, they may not know about it. But if I ask the same question, do you know the scholar or do you know the great scientist Einstein, Albert Einstein? Then they say no. Yes, we know. So meaning that a scholar is known in the globe, in the whole world. So there are no geographical boundaries for the scholar. Whereas for the leader is only geographical jurisdictions. It's only limited. So therefore, we need to take that scholarly kind of activity seriously. Why do we know Albert Einstein? Albert Einstein died 1955, and probably after more than 65 years down the line, we still remember him. What is E is equal to mc square. And he got Nobel Prize in 1921, and we have also scholars like Marie Curie. Marie Curie is the first lady to receive the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1903, and also in 1911, she got the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. She was the only lady to receive those two Nobel Prizes in two different fields, even after 120 years of Nobel Prizes history. So we remember Marie Curie died at the very young age of 38 years, and because of the radiation effect, the research that she was experimenting, she died. So even she died many years ago, we still remember Marie Curie, we remember Newton, we remember Galileo, we remember so many, William Harvey, and all those scientists, great scientists for the past 100 years, we do remember them because of the scientific discoveries. So ladies and gentlemen, if you are a leader, if you are a member of parliament, or if you are a president, or if you are a minister, so you are popularly known only within that particular jurisdiction. If you are a scholar, you will be known in the world. So meaning that in this internet revolution for the past 2 decades, the boundaries, there are no geographical boundaries for the research. Everybody can access your document. Everybody can access your article that you have written. Everybody can access your dissertation or the thesis that you have written. So meaning that we are the people that can be reachable to the whole globe without having any kind of geographical restrictions or boundaries. So with this opening remarks from my side, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to touch upon the number of researchers in the world. How many researchers that we have? What is the total population that we have today? We are getting close to 7.9 billion people, ladies and gentlemen. That's our population. 7.8 to 7.9, that is the population size. So we're getting close to 8 billion people maybe in the coming few years' time. Now, if you look at the magnitude of the population size that we have increased rapidly for the past 100, 200 years, ladies and gentlemen. The first billion of our population was only we reached in 1804. And the second billion we reached in 1927. Now the third billion reached in probably 1962 and so on. And then it goes on. So in 2021, today we are talking on 29th of April 2021, our population is getting close to 7.9 billions. From this 7.9 billions, how many number of researchers are there? All over the world, whether it is America, UK, Australia, or the France, Germany, India, China, and so Japan, and so on. How many researchers are there? Ladies and gentlemen, we don't even have 0.1% researchers in the world. Our number of researchers is less than 8 millions. So it's about 7.8 million people that we have as researchers in the world. We got so many seasonal researchers actually. A seasonal researcher who is the one who does the master's and PhD, and after the completion of the degree, once he or she got the title of the degree, then they are not going to bother about the research at all, and they don't do any kind of research. They don't probably write an article or publish a paper or a book or a monograph. So the research is stopped there. So these are all seasonal researchers. We do have lots of seasonal researchers. And if you are doing your PhD, your master's degree in any African country, you must be fortunate enough that you are one among those 0.1% of the researchers. Not even top 1%, but you are less than 1% of the researchers. So now that is why I advise you that we need to take the research as a serious activity. And if you make your research alive, and if you holistically contribute with your all skill, knowledge, dexterity, and your honesty, integrity, if you do some research, then you're not only known within your Nigeria or Ghana or maybe South Africa or Lesotho, any other African country, but you will be known out of the continent, within the world. So that is why when Mary Curie was conducting a research, her supervisor was not happy with her research. And he has to advise her quite a number of times. He was keeping on making the mistakes again and again, but she never gave up. So with that kind of level where she was, while she was a student, she could raise herself to win the 2 Nobel Prizes, which are the prestigious prizes in the world, ladies and gentlemen. So that is why you must take the research seriously. And what are the challenges that we are facing? So we got out of 7.8 billion people living on this planet today, we have got only 7.8 million researchers in the world. From that, for every million researchers, for every million people, how many researchers are there in the world? If you look at that size, we got less than 650 researchers, ladies and gentlemen. We need to think about that. So that is the average size of the researchers in the whole world. Now, if you look at a country like America, which is the largest economy in the world, which is contributing more than 23 to 24 trillion dollars to the global economy, and it has been the richest economy in the world for more than 150 years. So what America has got in terms of the researchers number, for every 1 million people they have. So they got 331 million people, and that made them to be the 3rd largest populated country in the world. And they have got, for every million people, they got only 4,700 people, ladies and gentlemen. And UK has got probably about 4,500 researchers for every million people. You come to South Africa, we got plus minus close to 600 people. And if you take Africa as a continent on an average, we got less than 200 people. That is our, now our population is getting close to 1.4 billion in the whole continent. And from that continent, so that is almost close to the population of India as a country. So Africa is a continent, India is a country, we can compare the population size. And India also got less than 150 researchers actually, per 1 million people. So in Africa, we are a little bit better off than India. But now the problem here is that what are the challenges that we are facing in terms of doing research? Ladies and gentlemen, we don't have the funding opportunities. Point number one. So funding is one of the biggest problems. So if you want to pursue your master's or PhD, you may not have the scholarships, you may not have the finances, you may not get the bursaries. So that is one of the important problems that African scholars have been facing. And they're also facing that they do not have the proper mentors to supervise their research or to mentor their research. They don't have the proper supervisors, qualified supervisors. So lack of mentors is one of the important key issues of African research. Now we do have immense problems. We do have challenges like at the universities, probably in the whole of African continent, not even 15% of the faculty members, they do have the PhD degrees to teach at the university. Of course, if we look at the South African side, they have a scenario. Some of the universities, they got almost 55% of their faculty members, they have the PhD degrees, but that is not the case in the rest of Africa. There are some universities in Africa, they have the bachelor degree holder is teaching at the university, another bachelor degree holder. This is what is happening. So when it comes to the research, and they do not pay much attention to conduct the research because of obvious reasons. There's no motivation also. If you do the research, you spend a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of resources, but at the end of the day, what you're achieving, what you're getting from that, there's no motivation at all. There's no encouragement at all. South Africa, we are fortunate enough that if you publish an article in an accredited journal, DHET, Department of Higher Education and Training, recognized journals, particularly the list of Scopus list and IBSS list, and also Web of Science, Thomson Reuters list. If we publish an article which is indexed in that kind of lists, then we will get some kind of benefit, one way or the other way, directly or indirectly. Majority of the money goes to the respective universities where the faculty is working, where the PhD student is doing the research, but at least a portion of that, maybe 10% of it or 20% of it, it depends upon the university's rules and regulations that they will get as a benefit, and that will be a motivation for them. Otherwise, there is no concept of doing research at all. So we do have serious challenges in terms of doing research in African continent. Africa is such a second largest continent in the world, which occupies about 31 million square kilometers land, which means that we are 3 times bigger than the whole European continent. And we got 55 countries here. Now, what is our contribution of research to the global research, actually? Global research arena? We need to question ourselves. So we do have a serious challenges in doing research, ladies and gentlemen. Point number one is that that's what the topic we are talking about. Now, there are lots of sources that we have. How to conduct the research? You've been probably following the research series organized by the Africa Institute of Supply Chain Research for the past 1 year. And we understand that there are different ethics related matters we discussed, methodology related, quantitative methods, qualitative methods, and so on and so forth. Now, this is an important topic for us. How to search a credible source to do our research. We do have billions and billions of information that is available on the public domain, ladies and gentlemen. How to filter them? What are the sources that we have, and where we need to try to balance it? And if you put a keyword or a phrase or maybe any other term, then you may find about 20,000 resources that are available. And how to filter those 20,000 resources, and how to do a credible research. So these are the things that we are going to talk today. In the interest of time, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to touch upon what are the recognized credible sources that we have in the world. Now, in the World Web and World Wide Web, we have www. We do have so many websites across the globe, from Africa to Asia, Asia to Europe, Europe to Latin America, Latin America to North America, and Australia. So we do have so many millions and millions of websites that we have. Billions of documents that are produced, millions of articles also that are being written and also available through the Google search engine. Now, how do we find out which is the credible source for us. So we have listed some of the credible sources through which you can try to obtain the credible, authentic, correct information. If research is more scientific approach, it is not something perspective based as such. Of course, you may have the perspectives as part of your qualitative studies, but it's more than that. You need to be authentic. You need to rely upon a source which is credible, which is correct. Then how do you recognize that? So we do have sources like World Bank is one of the important databases in the world. It is popularly known as International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. They do have probably more than 10,000 researchers working for World Bank in different countries. They do the credible research. We can rely upon those World Bank sources. Then the next one is that we got IMF, International Monetary Fund. They also do the credible research. Then we have got OECD, Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. They got massive database. They also do the very good credible research. We got Asian Development Bank, ADB, and we got on the other side, African Development Bank. They also get some kind of support from the researchers across the globe. Different consultants. Also, they work for the, these African Development Bank and European Development Bank, and also Asian Development Bank, and so on. So these are some of the credible sources that we can look and we can try to explore. We can get the information and the data from these sources. Now, what are the other sources that we have? We do have so many publishers, ladies and gentlemen. The journals that have been cropped up for the past 10 years down the line across the globe, the number of journals that are existing for probably more than 50, 60 years, and the journals that are cropped up, that are developed or emerged for the past 5 to 10 years, they are for the past 10 years, the number of journals that they increased tremendously like mushrooms than the existing journals, ladies and gentlemen. So now how to identify those journals and which journal is more scientific, which journal is more peer-reviewed journal. And for the name's sake, there are so many journals, they say that they are peer-reviewed, but in actual fact, they are not peer-reviewed. So peer review is the core, is the important element of research. Without the peer review process, if you publish an article, and if somebody quotes or somebody cites that article, so we are trying to develop so much, probably less or poor quality research than developing or promoting the quality research, substandard research. So therefore, the peer review process is one of the important element of the research. Now, what are those? There are so many journals, so many publishers that we have. What are the credible publishers that we have? To name a few, we got the Sage publishers, we got Elsevier publishers, we got Springer publishers, we got Blackwell and Wiley publishers, we got Taylor and Francis publishers, we got probably, maybe Tata McGraw publishers or McGraw company publishers. So we do have so many publishers, even Brill publishers. These are the established publishers across the globe. The journals that have been published by these scopus indexed one side by the Elsevier, Elsevier is the organization which organizes or manages the scopus indexed journals. And Elsevier has got massive number of journals that they publish. They got massive amount of database, the articles, scientific articles that have been published in different from engineering to arts, humanities, and supply chain management, economics, finance, econometrics, and also marketing and so on and so forth. So we do have, these are the various databases, these are the sources that you can rely upon. And then we do have so many other predatory journals. The predatory journals list are increasing from time to time, ladies and gentlemen. So it has become publication of an article is not for academic development, not for a research development purposes, but it's more like a business development purpose. So many journals across the globe that have been cropped up, that have been developed over a period of time, and ultimately once they got indexing with the Scopus or IBS's listing, or maybe Web of Science listing, and they try to mint the money, and then they try to encash the money. There was one publisher, probably based in Switzerland. Their turnover is more than $200 million, ladies and gentlemen. One cannot even imagine $200 million turnover with the academic research publications. And they are charging up to 2,000 euros of one article if they publish. In African continent, our fellow scholars, our fellow academicians, professors, associate professors, senior lecturers, and maybe probably we have got lecturers, junior lecturers, and research fellows, postdoctoral fellows, PhD students and master students. They don't get $2,000 means a postdoc, for example, he gets only 1,600 to 2,000 rand, about 16,000 to 20,000 rand per month. If he's working at Northwest University or UNISA, probably UniZulu or elsewhere in South Africa. Now, that means that he, on an average, is getting about $1,100 or $1,150 per month. How do we expect such kind of scholars where they can pay 2,000 euros and publish their article? This is the scenario in South Africa, for example. At least we are fortunate. We get some kind of funding from the universities, respective universities, maybe with a limited funding, maybe about 5,000 rands, 10,000 rands, or 15,000 rands. But if it is 2,000 euros, there is more than 15,000 rands. Now, how do you contribute and how do you publish? Whether it is a credible publication, whether it is a credible source, we need to question ourselves. There's a journal called Sustainability. There are so many massive number of journals that have been published by Switzerland and by few other European countries, or even some of the Australian, in Australia also there are some journals which are predatory journals. They charge about 350 to 500 US dollars or 1,000 US dollars they publish. Whatever rubbish that you write, whether it's a grammatical errors are there, syntax errors are there, or structural errors are there, there is no proper problem statement, there is no proper hypothesis, there is no proper research question or objective, and without having any proper conclusions, they are going to publish your articles. And somebody else, maybe in Africa itself, or maybe in Asian continent or any other developing countries, they would be referring your article that was published with a poor standards. Then how do we promote the quality of research?
So
the quality of research.
Sorry, Prof, projecting you again.
Yes.
Just check your slide. I'm not sure if that's where you are or
right. Well, Prof. Ambe, I think, yeah, I'm aware of that. Can you able to see my first slide that I would like to share with you?
Yeah, we can see outline, the introduction, research design.
Okay, and there are certain scholarly, I just would like to, I habituated to explain more from my mind than using the PowerPoints, Prof. Ambe Marcus and
you can carry right.
Yeah, that is why I was trying to explain more, probably as part of. So as you can see in the slide that I try to prepare here for you, that we do have massive number of sources, as I was explaining to you, massive number of publishers that we have. We do have so many predatory journals that we have. Even BLA list of predatory journals, if you look at it, if you Google it, you will see what are the predatory journals, what are the journals that are hijacked. For example, last year and there was a Transylvanian review which was indexed by Scopus as well as the IBSS. And there is the website, this Transylvanian review, one of the important journals from Romania, they were using this and they were publishing that, and somebody from Turkey or somebody from other country, they hijacked the journal. They were using the old website, and they are trying to mint money from the different scholars from South Africa, from different corners of the world, up to $1,000 to publish, $500 to $1,000. And they are trying to protect, what do we call, they're trying to act as if they are publishing a credible article and a credible journal. At the end of the day, it was not a credible article at all, ladies and gentlemen. So this is what is happening. We must be very, very careful about the journal that we try to cite, that try to explore, try to use. What are the sources? The sources, the quality of the sources that you use, the quality of research also will be promoted. So that is what you must be careful. So in the interest of time, ladies and gentlemen, I just try to list out some of the sources here that online scholarly database such as InfoTrack, and we have got the Lexis and Nexus. So Lexis and Nexus that helps us to explore more legal documents. Whether it's the Constitution of South Africa, whatever the legal sources that we have, Lexis and Nexus would help us to filter the legal documents. Then we got EBSCO, we got Jester, we got Scopus, we got Web of Science, I was explaining to you, which was probably managed by Thomson Reuters. And then we got Science Direct, we got Boloka. Boloka is a kind of Northwest University repository. So like that, every university, we got 26 public sector institutions or public sector universities in South Africa. Every university, they got their own repositories. So that is also massive number of documents you could able to find, because all the students who completed their master's and PhD degrees, their documents will be available in this repository. So I'm giving you an example here, Boloka NW repository. At UNISA, we got a repository. At University of Pretoria, University of Cape Town, University of Stellenbosch, and all the universities in the country, they also maintain their repositories. So these are one of the credible sources, because we check the plagiarism. We look into the plagiarism aspect. Some of the universities in South Africa, they look into 10% or 8% plagiarism. Some universities, they allow up to 20% plagiarism, but it doesn't matter. We try to look at the quality. We try to, every phase that we try to pass the document, we try to check the quality in every phase of the research process. So these are the sources that we have. And we also got the African journals, which were popularly known as, previously they are known as South African e-publications. Now, if we say South African e-publications, that is only related to South Africa. But if we say African publications, that is related to publications of all over the continent. So these are some of the sources, ladies and gentlemen. Let me take you to the other. So we need to look at the reliability of any research article or research journal that you are trying to explore. Please try to look at the reliability, the validity, the authenticity, the correctness, and the rigor, and the resilience. So these are the fundamental aspects one has to explore and assess before we try to explore or before we try to download an article. So please remember that. And then let me take you to some of the, how do we search? And because we got, as I mentioned to you, if you put one keyword or maybe one simple sentence, you'll be able to find about 10 to 20,000 sources. And 10 to 20,000 sources, in order for you to filter, it will take at least a few months for you to filter it. It's a laborious exercise. Research itself is a laborious exercise, ladies and gentlemen, but you must think that you are digging a small mountain or small hill. In order to find a small stone, you are digging a small hill. So meaning that that stone, the small stone that you are going to find out, it can be a diamond. It can be a prestigious diamond that can bring a name and fame, not only for yourself as an individual researcher, but also for your institution, for your country. So we must think into that. So that is why when you are trying to look for the sources, ladies and gentlemen, you need to look at the sources and how do we search. And as you can see that we can use some keywords. That is why every article that you write, or even every mini dissertation or dissertation and the thesis that you write, at the end of the abstract, we write at least 5 to 8 keywords. So we can search with the keywords, and there could be some combinations also, which I'm going to talk about after a few minutes. That is popularly known as Boolean. So we'll talk about Boolean. What is Boolean technique and how to adopt the Boolean technique to search some of the credible sources, or how to filter those sources. We'll talk about that. So keywords is very important. We can also put some phrases. We can use some kind of headings, and this is what I was telling you about Boolean logic. George Boole was a gentleman. He was an English mathematician. He was trying to explore on how to probably search for the material, and that is popularly known as Boolean logic. And Boolean logic is just like if you want to put entrepreneurship and probably innovation, and then that's how you can try to have a combination of different articles which deals with entrepreneurship one side, innovation on the other side, and maybe various other social entrepreneurship or maybe any other entrepreneurship also we can try to find it. So that is what is known as Boolean is nothing but you put and, you put or, you put plus, and that's how you try to have a different combinations and different searches. So that would also help you, ladies and gentlemen. These are the citation searching is also one of the things that you could able to uh, develop a bibliography, or you could able to develop a reference list, and with the citations also you can able to search and the related article, not only the related article, but also based upon the topic of that article, you can still try to explore some of the articles. So this is one thing I'd like to share with you. Now, how do you probably, in order for you to find out a research paper, what are the techniques, what are the tips that you need to follow? As you can see that identify your research paper topics. If you wanted to write a research paper, and you need to identify what are the pertinent literature that is available and how to search for that literature. So meaning that you can, if you already have a draft copy or draft title of your research, based upon that also you can try to search and keep the purpose. What is the purpose of the research that you are going to do and why you are doing it? And as I mentioned to you just now about the key concepts or keywords, that's one of the things we always should keep in mind. Then we also look into the library is one of our important sources. At UNISA, we got a big library, huge library, probably one of the biggest in the African continent. And at NWU, at Potchefstroom, at Mohican campus, at Wall campus, and at University of Pretoria, we do have a library. There are designated librarians who can assist you based upon your faculty, based upon your department. So please try to utilize that library source. In the library, these are the resources that I mentioned earlier, which is probably Emerald Journal site, Scopus, we got EBSCO, we got Lexis and Nexus, and all those things, they will try to assist you. Librarian will also assist you. So please make use of the library, and that is also one of the credible sources that you can depend upon. And you can make notes yourself. We can prepare some black cards and wild cards, popularly known as wild cards. So basically that will help you to filter and what is information that if you are able to find 5 or 10 articles that you are looking for, that is what you need to search for. So that is what analyzing and organizing your data and also important aspect. And you must organize yourself. If you are disorganized, a disorganized person cannot do a credible research. As simple as that. So you are fortunate, actually, the people, Y generation and Z generation people, you are lucky because you got everything in your hand. You sit with a laptop, you sit with a phone, you sit with a computer, you sit with a tablet, you got everything. As long as you got a stable internet connection, you can search anything in this world. So, but people like us, when I was doing my master's and PhD more than 2 decades ago or 3 decades ago, we do not have the luxury of what you are having today. For instance, when I was doing my master's and PhD, we used to travel to probably 2,000 kilometers to go to the library and to look for some of the sources that are available, journals and books and encyclopedia and any other monographs that are written. But today you don't need to depend upon that. So your life become more easy, but it's not that easy, ladies and gentlemen. So we are like BBC people, born before computers. So born before computers, now you born with computers. That is the big difference. So that is why, ladies and gentlemen, you are fortunate enough and you have to think that you are lucky that you could able to do some credible research. It's not cut paste, it's not copy paste. The moment when you copy paste without paraphrasing, without interacting with the literature, with your own words, then it will show in terms of your plagiarism or in terms of similarity. By Turnitin, by Authentic, or any other website can pick it up easily. That is why most of the journals that are been publishing the articles, they're also looking, they are very much cautious about the plagiarism. If it is a plagiarized article, they will reject at the desktop level itself. They don't take it to the next review process. So these are some of the things. And you can also look at the background information, and you need to identify the information, that which source that information is coming from. Is it a scientific journal published by a scientific publisher, or maybe a credible publisher, or what's the source of that? We need to also look into that. So the relevance, as I mentioned to you earlier, that authenticity, credibility, correctness is also very important for us to make sure. That is why I was quoting the example of World Bank, IMF, OECD, African Development Bank, and maybe Reserve Bank of South Africa, or the Reserve Bank of your own respective countries. You can also depend on Ministry of Trade and Industry, or probably the departments, government departments. So they have some credible statistical data, maybe Stats SA, for example, Statistics South Africa. So these are some of the sources that you can depend upon, and they are scientifically produced. Relatively, we can have an argument, somebody will question the Prof, I looked at this database, that's full of factual errors. Can we depend upon that? But relatively, because they are government sources, we can depend because we are mentioning that source according to so and so. So these are some of the things, and probably, yeah, Boolean techniques I was talking about, and this is periodicals, newspaper articles, and consultancy reports, and so on and so forth. And we discussed about the keywords, and we discussed about the other search terms. What the search term? Sometimes if you search with one term, if I search with the same term by using something different phrase, or maybe putting a plus or hashtag, then a different material can be also explored, or different material can be traced out. So please be careful that now hashtag fees must fall, hashtag with this, hashtag sustainable development goals, hashtag research and design. So with hashtag also with et buttons, hashtags with dollar buttons, all those things, these are the simple techniques that you can use in order to find your resources unless you satisfy that you could able to trace out and you could able to download them. So this is about the sources. As I mentioned about the books, encyclopedias, magazines, newspapers. We need to look at, there are so many newspapers also. The newspaper editors, they do not even have qualification to be editorial board member or editor themselves. So they would try to produce whatever comes in their way, they try to publish it. So that is why maybe New York Times or Washington Post, maybe Wall Street Journal, and maybe any other newspapers like Mail and Guardian, South Africa, some of the credible newspapers, you can Times, or maybe the Time and the Financial Times. So some of those are Economist magazine. So these are some of the credible sources you can always depend upon. And scholarly journals, there is nothing is equal to scholarly journals, ladies and gentlemen. Please be careful, please be mindful about the predatory journals. You mustn't be trapped into the predatory journals, and try to, even when you do the research, when you try to, if somebody assists the quality of your research, there are lots of predatory journals. To the extent possible, you try to avoid those predatory journals. That would be my suggestion. So these are the government documents that I was telling about, Department of Trade and Industry, or Department of maybe Small Business Development, or Department of Agriculture, and so on and so forth. You can also depend upon. And the thesis and dissertations, that is also one of the sources. You can also refer to that. So this is what I was telling about. George Boole is the English mathematician. He is the one who is trying to, so just to add, and if you put one word, if you want to marketing plus strategy plus development plus South Africa, so like that, if you try to broaden your scope, then you get more sources, and you can also filter them, and accordingly you can search. So these are the Boolean searching. We must also ask questions. What is it all about? What is that you want to do? And what is it about? You must question yourself. Why you wanted to do that? What is your purpose? What is your aim and objective? And whether the particular area that you are looking into, is it a scientific, is it overexplored area, or is it underexplored area? Now, for example, we are talking about the fourth industrial revolution for the past few years. We are talking about artificial intelligence. We are talking about blockchain. We are talking about probably different other, maybe data mining and big data. So these are some of the robotic technologies. So some of those new unexplored areas you try to bring in so that you will become a pioneer, so that the sources that you wanted to look for, if you wanted to look for artificial intelligence, for example, you look for artificial intelligence that is the subject area. So that is how you can try to filter them. And then in the interest of time, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to conclude by saying that thank you very much for the opportunity, Professor Ambe Marcus, President of the Africa Institute of Supply Chain Research, and also the organizers of this event. If you got any questions and comments or clarifications, you're most welcome to approach. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Ravinder, Rena. Thank you. It was very insightful and educational presentation. We would like to thank you. If there's anyone with a comment or a question, you may raise your hand so that Prof can assist you in whatever question you have. And also looking at our chat box, I don't think we do have any questions. It's just comments. They're saying, thanks, Prof, for a very informative presentation. And also they're saying, thank you very much for such important presentation.
My pleasure indeed.
Thank you once again, Prof. If there are no more questions, I believe that we have come to the end of our session. Before anything else, I would like to give Prof. Ambe this opportunity to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Vinolia. Thanks, Prof. Rena. I think for me, we'll still come to that, but I'll just ask, I mean, there are so many of us here that, and I see there are questions on the chat, but I wanted to ask, thanks very much, Prof. I mean, you made it so easy, and also with the citations and the relevance, of research that you emphasize in terms of our reputation, in terms of the legacy that we can be able to keep. Often, I want to just ask two things from my side. You find that there are so many students, masters and doctorate, or even those that are doing with their articles. Sometimes they find challenge in the quality of the secondary data sources that they are using. Most those are writing on, for example, issues of econometrics. They use data sets from the World Bank and the other side, and they always used to worry because one of the key things is the reliability of that source. I'm not sure if you want to just give us an insight in that particular respect. The second part I want to ask is, I mean, in our previous session, we had one of our participants that asked the question to say that I'm engaging in a study right now, and I do not have adequate resources in terms of relevant articles on that particular field of study. Now, what kind of advice and what kind of sources which can be utilized in this kind of case? I think with that too, I can pause. Thank you.
Yes, Prof. Marcus, thank you for that question and comment. With regard to the first point that you are raising about the World Bank, whether it is a credible source or not, particularly for the past 1 year, 2 months or 3 months, starting from March 2020, and we have been, the whole world is affected or impacted by the global pandemic coronavirus. So eventually, the data that the World Bank and IMF is generating at this point of time is not credible, because they cannot generate the data while they are sitting at home working from home. So we must think about that. But relatively, although if we realistically look at as economists or as finance experts or supply chain experts or maybe any other field of experts here, we can able to find out there are some flaws. There is no 100% accuracy and guarantee in the World Bank and IMF, even OECD also, because they're also human beings like you and I. If somebody, it's more like a teamwork. It's not an individual work as such. So in the team, if somebody is not competent enough or a little bit careless, and if he contributes something, then the whole project, the whole research database also will be having some flaws. For example, if you take maybe 100 liters milk and you take 1 drop of lemon and you put the lemon in that 100 liters milk, and the milk breaks, the milk gets spoiled. So same way, we do have some serious researchers, some of the world-renowned researchers like Joseph Stiglitz we have, Amartya Kumar Sen we have, and they have got citations. If you look at the Google Scholar Index, I forgot to mention about Google Scholar is also one of the areas that you can search for the sources. And if you look at the citation index of these great Nobel laureates, like Professor Joseph Stiglitz and Professor Amartya Kumar Sen, they're about 80, Professor Amartya Kumar Sen is about 89 years old. And his Google Scholar index is about 350,000 or 354,000 citations. One can imagine that. So what I'm trying to tell you here is that now there are some databases that we have like World Bank and IMF and other competent organizations, but because of the corona, and even before the corona also, in the normal situation also, the data that from where they are getting the data, they are getting again from the governments of the respective countries. We got the history where we do not have good researchers, or we have governments where they manipulate the research statistics. And unfortunately, in Africa or in Asia and other developing countries, the statistics that are being developed, they're always subjective. They're not completely accurate as such, but because these are the only sources that we have, and we think they're the only credible sources that we have. If there is an independent source that you can able to clarify or verify the data, then you can verify and try to weigh the options, and you can try to use. So my answer for that is that Professor Ambe, even within the credible sources like World Bank and IMF, we do have challenges. It's not completely perfect. It's not 100% scientific as such. So, but relatively, I must say that relatively they are better than other sources, because the way they estimate, the way they forecast is a little bit more accurate than others. For example, the global economic financial crisis that was occurred in 2008-2009, that has been forecast before by some of the great economists, but the world didn't pay attention to that. So if we look into the forecasting side, the forecasting techniques, the econometric techniques that they use is more scientific, more credit worthy. But if you look at the database itself, they have developed database across the world. All the countries in the world, they have the database. The database is again supplied by those respective countries. If those researchers who are working that particular database, if they are not serious, then the mistakes will be built up. That's what is going to happen. Thank you. I hope I answered your question, Professor Ambe.
Thank you very much. Venoli, I see there are questions on the chat.
Prof, you are saying something?
No, I was telling the program coordinator that there are questions and comments on the chat.
I see.
Yes, Prof, I was about to attend to that. Prof, we do have a question from Walter Maliana. He's saying, can I use a published technical report as a credible source?
Well, that's a good question. In fact, yes, you can use that because technical reports that normally we prepare, and some of the working papers also that have been prepared for IMF, those documents we can use them as some of the credible sources.
Okay, I believe he has been answered. And there's another one from Heidi. It says, if you cannot find secondary sources and sorry, let me start over. If you cannot find secondary sources and specific issues, Prof mentioned that we can use other sources such as magazines, newspapers, etc. But how many can you use on your issues as it might seem as gray sources? What will be the impact on your source? On your research?
Well, that's also a very good question. Thank you very much for that. Indeed, Vinolia, the point of the matter here is that if you are writing an article, if you use too much newspapers like Mail and Guardian or any other Financial Times, this and that, and if you use too much magazine and what do we call the newspaper sources or website sources, your the value of the article is going to diminish. So please be remember that. That is why we encourage all our students, masters, doctoral students, and also early career researchers. They can depend heavily on the scholarly journal articles. Scholarly journal articles, even some of the books that have been published many years ago, even sometimes 2 decades back, that are published and then they keep on publishing a new edition. But then the data that they were using is not updated. The way the perspectives are being expressed were also not been updated. So therefore, we can depend upon more on the scientific scholarly articles. That's important. If you use, because newspapers sometimes they give you information. So collecting information is not research. When you collect the information, apply your mind and think wisely with regard to the problem there, with regard to the challenge there, and try to think with some kind of solution. So training your mind to think based upon the information that you have and apply your mind and your skill, your critic, and then you try to develop the story. That is always worth. And therefore, my answer would be, in a nutshell, that too much dependency on the newspaper articles that will dilute the focus, that will also reduce the quality of your research. So therefore, you can depend upon the maybe technical reports, as somebody is asking. You can depend upon the so many other reports that have been published by the credible publishers, like I indicated, OECD, World Bank, and IMF, and African Development, and so on. And then you can supplement, or you can try to complement those sources with some sort of scientific articles less than 5 years old. And if you could able to do that, then you can have a balanced approach. Otherwise, it would be one-sided. Sometimes the gentleman was also saying that Mail and Guardian, sometimes they publish the articles without having any kind of scientific basis. It could be more onto the hearsay and a perspective based. So we must be careful about it. You, as a researcher, looking at something that everybody look at the same information, but when somebody else look at, you have a different thinking and different ideas. So that is what is research action. So therefore, you always should look at the content with a critical approach. Then you can try to apply your mind and you build up something. I hope I answered the question.
Well, indeed, Prof, you did answer the question. Thank you so much for that. We have another question from Walter. It says MNG has, in some instances, published an article that they later retracted due to a material inaccuracies. So why do you think that they can still be considered to be one of the credible sources for scientific research?
Excellent. Walter, that is a very good question. You see, even there are scientific journals. Sometimes because of oversightedness, Sometimes because of editor or assistant editor or associate editor or author themselves, they might commit some mistakes. And they may request the publisher or the publisher himself, based upon the complaints that they receive, they can also retract that article. When they retract the article because they find something wrong with that, then we cannot blame that it is not scientific, but they're still trying to maintain the quality. So quality is not a easy shortcut method approach. It is a journey that you need to pass through with lots of hurdles, and then you can try to build the quality. So that there is no shortcut method for the success. There is no shortcut method for the quality and excellence. So therefore, all these, not only Mail and Guardian, but also there are scientific journals published by Elsevier, for instance, or maybe the Sage journals or Springer journals. So they try to retract, or they try to remove the articles, or even they can, if they cannot remove, they can just put some water kind of headings that this article is retracted, so that everybody knows that they are not supposed to use that article anymore. So that is why. So based upon that, one or two things here and there we cannot judge. So we cannot be judgmental, but we need to always, you as a scholar, you are wise enough, you got good maturity than ordinary educated people, and then you need to assess. That is why we always look at the Bloom's taxonomy, where you need to evaluate, where you need to analyze, create, criticize. So this is the higher order thinking skills, not reading and understanding kind of thing, but more than that. So I hope I answered your question.
Thank you very much, Prof. We have another question from Heidi. It says, I believe it's a comment. It says, thank you, Prof. It is sometimes difficult to find current articles on a certain issue, a lot of information in magazines, etc. The articles available on the topic or issues, but is older than 10 years. How can we overcome such issues?
Excellent. That's a very good question, and that's the biggest challenge that we have in our developing world, ladies and gentlemen. The problem that we have here is that majority of the articles, now these credible publishers I was talking about, they don't charge the publication fee, some of them, but they restrict the availability of the article. So meaning that once the Springer journal or Elsevier journal, they publish the articles, if you wanted to access that article published in 2021 April or maybe February or March, what's going to happen is that they will ask you, the immediately you found an article and you wanted to explore or you wanted to download that article, they will say that pay $30 or $50 or $10, and we stuck there. So they are not freely accessible. There are some universities, for example, University of Northwest University, we spend more than 20 million South African rands to subscribe the online resources. And I'm sure that UNISA spends more than that. Or maybe University of Pretoria and other universities, they spend more than that. So that is one way where you can try to approach your librarian. You can tell them that there is also common agreement among the libraries of South Africa that if somebody able to access or they subscribe for a particular journal, Northwest University student needs that, and the University of Pretoria, they have subscribed for it, they can still try to negotiate. They can still try to approach that University of Pretoria and get that article. So these are the things that are possible. That is why my point here, your question, you are saying that 10 years, I do understand that because of the problem that they're asking money and we cannot able to download the latest articles. We do have serious challenge. A few months ago, I think if I remember, November or December last year, Elsevier and Springer and Sage, some of these publishers, they were restricting the database. Earlier, there are some articles and some older articles they used to give them for free access for most of the researchers in the world. Now they're trying to put a cap on that. If they put a cap on that, that is going to cost all our developing country researchers more than $7 to $10 billion. So that is going to be an expensive exercise for us. So my answer is still that to the extent possible, you try to have at least 2006 or 2016 downwards, 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, something like that. If you have about 10 to 20% older resources, for example, we got a theory that was propounded by Adam Smith, the father of economics. He wrote a book, A Wealth of Nations, in 1776. You wanted to refer something related to your research and you wanted to quote Adam Smith, that is fine. It is a seminal work, you can quote. Even there is a 200-300 years old work, you can quote. But most of the time, try to cover with the latest literature so that you try to fill the gaps, research gaps. That would be my advice. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. I do have a comment from Pongumalo. It says, thank you, Prof, for an insightful presentation.
Absolutely pleasure.
Thank you, Prof. I believe that there are no more questions. So I believe that we have reached the end of our meeting. I would like to thank everyone who took their time to avail themselves for this meeting. And I believe that it was a gainful meeting. In short, before we close, I'm gonna remind people to continue following us on our social media platforms. We are African Institute for Supply Chain Research on Twitter, on Facebook, LinkedIn, and on YouTube. If there's anyone who would like to comment or say something before we close, you are more than welcome to say whatever you like to say.
No, thank you very much, Vinolia. I think this is the opportunity. I took that time probably just for Prof to be able to use his insight. Colleagues, just to let you know that you are been listening to one of our key, researchers in the country and the continent. Prof. Rena is also the founding editor-in-chief of the International Journal for Education, Economics and Development. He is also an associate editor for the African Journal of Science, Technology and Innovation and Development, which is a Scopus Index. So the reason I'm saying this is that if you also need to get some important article, please make time to visit those journals. If you also intend to send in some publications, you can also contact Prof. Rena. So on that note, I want to thank you from our side, and that, like Vinolia is indicating, and I'm trusting that she will be able to send you the webinar calendar, which we're meeting twice a month for you to be able to make use of this opportunity. And then also just to remind you that tomorrow is the beginning of a new program for ISCA, which we call the Supply Chain Management Game Changer Series. So we will be having Dr. Norman Lamprecht, who is the executive manager for research and trade for the National Automotive Manufacturing Association in South Africa. He is also the author of the automotive manuals in South Africa. So there is so much that you can be able to gain and to be able to gain insight in terms of what the National Automotive NAMSA is doing regarding supply chain management and socioeconomic development in driving Africa Agenda 2063. On that note, thank you very much. Over to you, Vinolia.
Thank you very much, Prof. Ambe. I would like to thank everyone for taking their time to avail themselves. And also, as Prof has said, tomorrow we have the Game Changer series. It will be very wise and for you to join the meeting tomorrow, because as it says, it's a game changer. So in short, I would like to thank everyone and enjoy the rest of your day, and bye. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye for now.
Thank you, stay, bye.